Well, I was able to get through this in one sitting, so I'm happy to say I saw 7 days in one day. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to my channel. Today we're talking about a newer release, 7 Days. Before I begin, let me know in the comments what your thoughts on this movie were, if you already saw it, or if you were planning on seeing it, and make sure to hit that thumbs up button if you like these reviews, as it helps me out immensely by getting my content out there. And if you're new here, I hope you consider hitting that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with more movie-related content like comedy reviews on a near daily basis. But let's not waste any more time and let's talk about 7 Days. This stars Karan, Soni and Geraldine Viswanathan as Ravi and Rita, as if their prearranged date, organized by their traditional Indian parents, wasn't uncomfortable enough. They're then forced to shelter in place together as COVID-19's reach intensifies. Soni also co-wrote the screenplay along with the film's director Roshan Sethi, with the Duplass Brothers production company producing it, and it received a limited theatrical release in March before getting a VOD release in April. And if the plot synopsis didn't give it away, it's yet another movie shot at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic that directly incorporates it into its storyline. Now, if you follow me for a while now, you'll know I've really grown sick of this subgenre, which is a mix of films that either directly mention the pandemic or were clearly filmed during it and won't mention it but just find ways to excuse how most characters only talk to one another over the phone or Zoom. While I commend all the filmmakers behind all these movies for trying to make the most out of a bad situation, most of these clearly felt boxed in and would kind of get stale quickly. There have been some exceptions, there have been some good ones, but most of them not really. And that's not to say that there aren't any moments here where this plays into some of the weaker elements of the subgenre, but that's actually only the exception and not the rule, and I'm at least happy to report this actually winds up being one of the better entries in the pandemic movie subgenre. Now, for one thing, the big advantage this has over most of the other movies is that most of the films that didn't work were horrors or thrillers, while this is a romantic comedy. Now, I love me a good horror movie, but there are only so many thrills and scares one can get out of the same claustrophobic setups where they only have so much to work off of. It worked a couple of times, but most of those films would fall flat. This instead goes for something with a lot more heart and looks to play into our emotions, giving us characters we can connect with and enjoy following, making for a film that, despite a setup that will ultimately date it a little, we may actually want to revisit. Now, it does follow some tropes of the romantic comedy genre. Like most rom-coms, it focuses on a pair of mismatched leads who now have to endure a series of odd couple-like scenarios for 90 minutes. Ravi's very neurotic and he relies heavily on tradition and a regimented lifestyle, while Rita is very blunt, crass, and laid back, doing the total opposite of everything Ravi does, such as eating meat, cursing, and drinking alcohol regularly. Yet what diverts our attention away from the cliches is the sharp sense of humor and its genuine sense of warmth, as seen in these interactions, especially since, while these two are both at odds with each other, they're not cruel or terrible to one another. And Geraldine Viswanathan in particular is a scene stealer here, with an excellent sense of timing, in which she always has a witty comeback ready to go as soon as Ravi tries taking some sort of control over her house. And there were plenty of moments I bursted out laughing because of the way she just doesn't skip a beat. But Karan Soni gets a lot of truly heartfelt moments here too. And because this film never really had a cruel sense of humor, the jokes centered around his eccentricities never came off that way. Though we do get a few fun moments from him, especially in one series of events where, after he decides he and Rita aren't right for each other initially, he starts setting up virtual prearranged dates with other women while in Rita's house, with Rita sitting not too far from him, which winds up being a lot funnier than its sitcom-y setup suggests. But ultimately there's a sense of endearment to him, especially as he knows Rita is hiding more than she's letting on, and as he tries to press her on certain parts of her life, including the meaning behind one hilarious misunderstanding involving a phone call, it brings on a sense of warmth as we see this awkward guy view things he never thought about from completely different perspectives for probably the first time in his life. And while I've been a big fan of Viswanathan since appearing in Blockers, I do hope we also see a lot more from Soni in starring roles as well, because he was excellent here too. And even if the story does play into familiar elements, it's one that still works because even if you were to rework it and not include some of the references that will ultimately date it, there's still plenty there for it to hold up on its own. It's a movie that's ultimately about finding connections in some of the most unusual places, thereby taking its cliched elements and fully embracing them in order to discuss its relatable themes. You wind up not minding if it can be a little cheesy from time to time as a result, and to further drive the point across, The film's bookended by testimonials from real-life Indian couples who met via pre-arranged dates and spoke very lovingly of their spouses. And that sweetness is the tone that ultimately shines through most of the film, and because of that, I just had a big old smile on my face. And also because of that, I didn't mind all its use of cliches or that it was yet another pandemic movie. Now, I think it does dive a bit too much into its cheesiness towards the third act, leaning into some of the more contrived aspects of both the romantic comedy and the pandemic movie, and for that, it's what just holds this back from being great in my book, but it's still not a bad ending. Even if it's not great, I still think it ended on a decent enough note, as there's still that same sense of charm to it that drove the rest of the movie forward. 7 Days was a nice surprise, and easily one of the better entries in the pandemic movie subgenre. While it will ultimately feel a bit dated in some regards, and it does follow some romantic comedy tropes, it's still an endearing film with a sharp sense of humor that allows it to easily overcome most of its faults. Anchored by two strong performances from Karan, Soni and Geraldine Viswanathan, I recommend you give this a shot. 7 Days gets a 7.5 out of 10. So let me know, did you see 7 Days, or are you planning to see it, and what are your thoughts? Is this one of your new favorite romantic comedies? Is one of your new favorite pandemic movies? Let me know in the comments below so we can discuss. Also, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and share it. And for more movie reviews and film discussion, please make sure to hit that subscribe button to stay updated. Thanks for watching everyone, and keep having fun with film.